The chosen prayer, rather prayers, there are two prayers from the prayers and meditations of the Mother, one written on May 15 and the next written on May 16, 1914. In these two prayers, the Mother is talking about a realization and an experience in which she has got caught up. And from this higher state, there is a kind of a feeling she is explaining in both the prayers, which we will talk about. And the net is that even extreme states of contemplation, meditation, and contemplation upon the divine, when there is a complete union with the absolute consciousness, even that state has to be, you have to let go of even that state. So clinging of any sort to any experience, however high that may be, it has to be let out. And the work which is very important, the outer usefulness, that is the work which is meant for all. It has to be done at the gross physical level for everybody. That work takes prime importance. And just by contemplation and meditation, the work that is needed, it cannot get completed. The complete transformation can happen only through works by the outer usefulness. Now, Sri Aurobindo has said that the sadhana cannot proceed without realizations and experiences. And these prayers and meditations which the Mother has penned down when she was undergoing her own yogic path, on the spiritual path, they are her own realizations and experiences. The divine first does the work for the world, and then it is let out for the entire world to get raised. So in the prayers and meditations, this is something that the Mother has written, and it holds true for everybody. In these prayers and meditations, if one reads them with full concentration and devotion, how to aspire, how to pray, how to remember and offer the divine, every act, it all becomes very transparent when one reads the prayers and meditations in the right spirit, as an offering to the Mother, invoking the Mother. Prayer on May 15, 1914. As on reaching a summit, one discovers a vast horizon, so, O Lord, when one's consciousness is identified with that intermediate domain between thy unity and the manifested world, one participates both in thy infinitude and in the realization of the world. It is as though one were at the center, where the consciousness, wholly steeped in thy effective power, could direct the ray of thy forces upon the lowly instrument moving among its brother instruments. From the height of these transcendent regions, the unity of physical substance is clearly visible. And yet, the body which serves as a particular instrument in the material field seems specially precise and distinct, like a stronger point amidst this whole, at once multiple and one in which the forces circulate evenly. This perception has not left me since yesterday. It has settled in as something definitive, and all the outer activity, which apparently continues as usual, has become mechanical, like a marvelously articulated and animated toy, moved by the consciousness from the height of its seat, which though no longer individual, is still universal, that is, which is not yet completely merged in thy oneness. All the laws of individual manifestation have become clear to me, but in so synthetical, so global, so simultaneous a way that it is impossible to express this in our ordinary language. So Mother has written this prayer from a very heightened height of consciousness. She's saying, as on reaching a summit, one discovers a vast horizon. Metaphorically speaking, if we consider rising up to a certain horizon on a summit. For example, the mountain of consciousness, if you can take it metaphorically or figuratively. When you are at the base of the mountain, a lot of the bends and the turning points and the path is not very clear to us. And the valley, whatever is happening in the valley is also not very clear to us. Whatever turns we have to take, we have to really struggle to take those turns, knowing that it is unknown. Those bends and turns are unknown. As we rise, as we climb the mountain higher, the valley starts becoming visible, and the path also starts becoming more visible. From the height that we are, we can see the valley, we can see the settlement, we can see the people, and we can see how much, that we have traveled this far, and the bends and crooks and corners and the path starts becoming visible to us. Higher up the mountain, it becomes even more visible. Now the entire valley is very visible to us, and we can also see the people, as we climb higher and higher, we see also the people who are on the path climbing the same mountain. And as we climb higher, the fear that is in us in the beginning of it, it starts diminishing. And there is a kind of an expansion which starts happening. At the summit of the mountain, everything in every direction, in every expansion, we can see everything very clearly. And so when one reaches at the top of the mountain, you also get the expansion that the stars are very near to us. You have climbed to a height where you are in between, to the vast expansion above, and also the expansion which is in the valley or at the base of the mountain. So everything starts becoming very transparent. The path, once you have had, you also see the struggles of the people who are still at the base of the mountain. And one realizes that when these people also climb the mountain and reach that horizon, they also will be fearless, and the same expansion they also will be feeling. So the path one has traveled, or the path one has climbed to reach the horizon, it also lets out a path for the others to follow. So right now she is at the intermediate domain, where she is realizing the absolute consciousness, and she is also realizing that the absolute consciousness is pouring into her, so that the rays of this absolute consciousness, the awakened consciousness, can flow out from her into the other beings, into the brother instruments. She has used the word, beautiful word, brother instruments, for the other instruments. So she is like if you can take the analogy of a prism, when the white light passes through the prism, it's white light, but the moment it starts coming out from the prism, you can see the spectrum, you can see all the 7 colors. And nowadays, of course, each of the colors, also the scientists say that each of the colors itself have their own spectrums. So she's like a prism, the light is coming to her from above, and now it is scattering into different spectrums, and it is reaching out to everybody on the physical level, whatever is needed by anybody, according to the spectrum. For example, the sunlight, as it falls on the green plants, they start the photosynthesis. So the green light is reflected and the rest of the light is absorbed, so if you can take the example of the light which is pouring into her, and this light is now getting reflected, or it is just getting scattered, and it is touching everybody else on the physical plane. So she is aware of the absolute consciousness, and she is also aware that it is the absolute consciousness which is pouring into her, the light which is pouring into her, for it to reach the others who are below. It is as though one were at a center where the consciousness, wholly steeped in thy effective power, could direct the ray of thy forces upon the lowly instrument moving among its brother instruments. From the height of these transcendent regions, the unity of physical substance is clearly visible, and yet the body which serves as a particular instrument in the material field seems specially precise and distinct, like a stronger point. Now, there is a very, in the Savitri, Sri Aurobindo has written about 2 states, the static oneness and the dynamic power. It is very much possible to realize the state of oneness, which is the static oneness, the power contained in the ultimate divine, the sovereign master. It is a powerhouse. One can become aware of this static oneness, and one can at the same time realize and perceive the dynamic power which is in action. But either of it is not complete in itself. One bases itself on the other, because they are the two statuses or the two poises of the same divine one reality. One is the static one containing everything that can pour out, and the other is a power in action, the dynamic action, the Mahashakti. So both these states are possible to be experienced and realized at the same time. And one who is ready, the divine pours out these two states together into the instrument, and then the being turns into the perfect instrument of the divine. The static oneness and the dynamic power they are together existing in the instrument, and once this state is reached, it is the divine who is actually doing everything in the instrument. And Sri Aurobindo has called it like, then is revealed in man the overt divine. The divine openly has its action through the instrument. Her face is seen through his face. I am quoting from Book 1, Canto 3, Savitri. Her face is seen through his face, her eyes through his eyes. Her being is his through a vast identity. Then is revealed in man the overt divine. A static oneness and dynamic power descend in him. The integral Godhead's seals, his soul and body take that splendid stamp. So whichever the mother has already reached this stage, in the previous prayers also we see she has already reached this state where she knows that she is the instrument of the divine, working only for the divine service. So from this state, now Sri Aurobindo, interestingly, in the same Book 1, which is the Yoga of the Soul's Release, in the same canto, in fact Canto 3, he has also written about covert universe, the hidden planes. When one has reached this kind of a stage where there is a static and a dynamic oneness, and it happens after the psychic has traveled through many, many lives, this state is reached. But once this state is reached, now the instrument, one is the instrument, whatever are the nooks and corners in the instruments which are half lit or partially lit, the light from the divine, the absolute consciousness starts working, and it touches those places in the instrument, those corners or those parts of the instrument which now need to be enlightened, so that the instrument can become more and more perfect. It is a continuous process. And once this stage is reached, the being also starts becoming aware of subtler universe. There is the subtle universe which is beyond the gross physical. And one starts becoming aware of these physical planes, the higher physical planes are the higher universal planes. So the mother is here saying, from the height of these transcendent regions, the unity of physical substance is clearly visible. From where she is at the intermediate domain now, she is in this, at the middle of this, she is experiencing this, and she is saying that the unity of the physical substance is clearly visible. The realization is there that it is the same consciousness which is working in everything and every being. And so this is the unity of the physical substance. So it is very clearly visible to her, and yet the body, which serves as a particular instrument in the material field, seems especially precise and distinct. So in spite of the fact that there is a oneness, the closeness which she is feeling with the other souls or the other consciousness in the other beings which are together working in the gross physical, she is feeling that, yet she is not, she is not letting herself go totally into it, because there is a role of the instrument. Unless one is a perfect instrument, being an instrument, it can touch other instruments and transform them. The power which the instrument is getting, once the transformation is happening, the divine starts manifesting, and the manifestation is such that the other beings who need to get transformed by the touch of that instrument, which she is. So that is why the instrument is still precise and distinct, because it is the seat from which the divine is going to pour out the light, and from her, the light is now going to touch the other beings who need to be raised in consciousness. So, specially precise and distinct like a stronger point amidst this whole, at once multiple and one. So, she is having the feeling of the multiplicity, because now there is a scattering, you know. She's touching every other being with the raised consciousness that she has. And so there is a oneness, and there is a oneness in multiplicity. So it's like Sri Aurobindo has said, the finite mates with the infinite, you know. This perception has not left me since yesterday. It has settled in as something definitive. So she is having a realization, she is experiencing something, and she's saying that it is there since yesterday. And incidentally, on May 14, we find that there is no prayer. So she is undergoing an extreme, realization and experience, and she's liking it very much over there, which we will see in the next prayer what she does with it. This perception has not left me since yesterday. It has settled in as something definitive, and all the other activity which apparently continues as usual has become mechanical, like a marvelously articulated and animated toy, moved by the consciousness from the height of its seat. So, obviously, the universal higher planes, there are certain predetermined things which are happening in these planes, in the subtle physical, in the subtle higher universe, or a subtle vision develops. Now, if I may give you an example, many times it happens that, she's talking of the body or the instrument working as a marvelously articulated and animated toy. So there is a delight over there. Also what happens is, many times we see that we do something or we think something which we ourselves cannot perceive, as us doing it, Something that you do, you surprise your own self, Arey, ye maine kaise kar liya, how was I able to do this, So that aha feeling comes ki I have done something, I am not even aware that I could do it, and yet I could do it. And sometimes out of the blue, you don't even think of certain things and you act. So what happens is, at these subtle, higher universal levels, the predetermined thing which we need to become better instruments is, it starts coming down, pouring down from there into us without even us realizing it, because that for the divine manifestation that is needed, and the divine is now taking care of it and doing the work. So even when we are not aware of certain things, it happens. But this stage also comes when there is an intense aspiration. We have been aspiring, and that is how these subtle, you can say higher planes, they start functioning. There is a scaffolding between the absolute consciousness and the gross physical. There is a scaffolding of these planes. They are also very necessary. It's not that once the aspiration is there, then the whole absolute consciousness will come down to you. As instruments, we are not even ready for that. We will just get crashed. We will just get trampled under that huge force. Sri Aurobindo says that if one little, when we aspire and we feel this union and we feel this delight of the union, we feel so ecstatic. So Sri Aurobindo says, if one drop of the divine consciousness which is seeping into you makes you sing and dance with joy, what will happen if the entire thing comes down? So that is why there is a reason, or there is a logic for the planes also to be there. So it acts as a scaffolding even for the aspiration. That is why the ups and downs come. The more ups and downs, and then further ups and downs. The more we aspire, then there are certain periods where we will also fall. But again, if we rise, so we expedite the whole process. And it is not possible by human effort alone. The divine is pouring itself out. And for it to reach us in a way that we can absorb it for the divine manifestation, these levels have been created. So the mother, at this stage, she is the perfect instrument. She is the divine in the human, she has embodied the human, but she is still divine. So she has surpassed this stage, yet because she is working in the human consciousness, she also at times is undergoing this kind of a, feeling that, she is in the intermediate zone and then something is pouring and spreading out through her. So moved by the consciousness from the height of his seat, which though no longer individual, is still universal. That is, which is not yet completely merged in thy oneness. So it is an intermediate stage. The work, how will this oneness come? How will this universal and complete oneness, complete merging with the oneness come? Only when the work which needs to be done is done. Only then the oneness is complete. Before that, it is not yet complete. So this is what she is saying, that it is not yet completely merged in thy oneness. Yet the feeling is very good, because one is aware that it is the divine pouring and scattering through the light through her. So there is a immense delight, and all the laws of individual mechanism have become clear to me. In the human form, she is saying, see, all the laws of individual manifestation have become clear to me, but in so synthetical, so global, so simultaneous a way that it is impossible to express this in our ordinary language. So synthetic, global, it is about the universal, the fields which are there above the gross physical also. It is so synthetic. One is building on the other. And even while the grace is coming down, it is a stepwise release, Only for very few selected, the intense grace, they are able to take that grace. But for the ordinary people who are working in the gross physical, this scaffolding is very, very, very much needed. So it is a very synthetic process. It is a global process. It is not that it is only working at one point. When the transformation starts happening, it is not only in one point that it is happening. Wherever it is needed, wherever the divine intervention is needed in the instrument, it will come. But the aspiration, the ardent aspiration has to be there. It is very interesting to note that Sri Aurobindo, when he wrote the Savitri and he took 50 years, it is his whole yoga, it is there in Savitri, his whole yoga. And he would revise, he would edit time to time, and over, he would rewrite many of the chapters. For 50 years he did that. So when mother came into Pondicherry, and she would visit Sri Aurobindo in the morning, and the night before, Sri Aurobindo has been writing, he has been editing and rewriting portions of the Savitri, and he would read it out gently to the mother first. And the mother would be very surprised and amused, and in her mind she would say, how did he know this experience I am going through? So he had actually written about the whole. So in that way, if we see the prayers and meditations, and if we see Savitri, Sri Aurobindo's creation, they are actually very synonymous. The mother has also undergone the same yoga which Sri Aurobindo has. Only thing, Sri Aurobindo has penned it down in Savitri. And Sri Aurobindo's work was also to bring the mother forth, So he talks about the divine mother at length in Savitri. But his yoga is contained in the whole of Savitri. In that way, I feel prayers and meditations and Savitri, they are synonymous in experience, in the type of the integral yoga that both of them did. Now the next prayer, she is again talking of the same experience. She has not been able to come out, but the mother being mother, constantly through these prayers, she is telling us to remember and offer, to remember and offer. And that is what she did with this experience also. I was interrupted yesterday, just when I was trying to formulate the experience I had. And now, everything seems changed. So she has remembered, put the experience to the divine, and she has offered it. That precise knowledge, that clear-sightedness has given place to a great love for thee. So immediately as she has offered, she has got the answer. And she feels an immense love for the divine, for showing her what needs to be done. O Lord, which has seized my whole being from the outer organism to the deepest consciousness, and all lies prostrate at thy feet in an ardent aspiration for a definitive identification with thee, an absorption in thee. I implored thee with all the energy I could summon. And once again, just when it seemed to me that my consciousness was going to disappear in thine, just when all my being was nothing but a pure crystal reflecting thy presence, someone came and interrupted my concentration. So, there is an interruption again. And this interruption has come because she has to come out of this state. So, the mother is saying that it is, this would become her routine in the coming years. Right now she has just arrived in Pondicherry few months. And this would happen to her again and again. The moment she is in deep contemplation with the divine, which is an ecstatic and a beatific state, what can be a better state than this? But the mother, even in the previous prayer, one of the previous prayers we have seen, she gets a command, be the instrument of which I have need. And she has the command to even let go of this union, let go of this contemplation, the ecstasy, the delight that she is feeling. She has to let go of that. Even the union with the divine has to be she has to let go. So clinging of any sort, however high the experience may be, is also not a part of this. One has to let go of that. And then only one can proceed to do the work which the divine wants us to do as the instrument for the divine manifestation. Someone came and interrupted my concentration. Such is indeed the symbol of the existence thou givest me as my share, in which outer usefulness, the work for all, holds a much greater place even than the supreme realization. All the circumstances of my life seem always to tell me on thy behalf. It is not through supreme concentration that thou wilt realize oneness. It is by spreading out in all. May thy will be done, O Lord. There is a work which is ordained for her from the divine to work for the humanity. And that is, if we consider any avatar which has come on, who has come on this earth, Sri Aurobindo, the mother, they were all avatars. They were working in the human consciousness. They took the human form so that the human consciousness can get transformed. We can get closer to the divine. We can be united with the divine. So this is the immense work that lies with them. So why the divine form? Why should they take the divine form? Being in the divine form, they take up the human consciousness. And every hurdle, every obstacle that they are facing as humans, they raise the consciousness and they bring down, and that consciousness, that raised consciousness, stays in the earth realm. And it touches the other beings who need the transformation. So once they start working in the human body, they are actually bringing down the absolute consciousness. So they raise themselves to such a height, the raised consciousness stays in the physical and it touches everybody. That is the work. As a child, I would often wonder, I studied in a convent. As a child, I would always wonder, why Christ was put on the cross? Why did he have to undergo so much of suffering? Why did he, he was nailed to the cross, he bled and died on the cross. Why? They say in what was told to us was that it is for us so that our sins are pardoned. So that, he has taken away all our sins. Sin is, now I understand that sin is something, it is pap and punya, sin and all that. It is something that is unwanted for the progress or for the transformation is sin, is unwanted. It is unwanted. So, by being in the human form, at the time when Jesus Christ was there, he suffered a lot because at that particular time, in that era, there was a lot of grotesque and gruesome, killings, torture of the flesh, So he took up that form and he bled. By doing that, by overcoming that pain and suffering, he went into a divine union with that absolute consciousness and he brought down that consciousness into that. And that is where he paved the path for all of us. In fact, Sri Aurobindo has said, the advent of Jesus Christ, it transformed the entire Europe. So how it transforms the Europe? Because the consciousness with which they work in the human field, it stays forever. And it touches each one of us, and it raises our consciousness. We may not be even aware of it, but nevertheless it is still working. And Sri Aurobindo, the mother has said, Sri Aurobindo's consciousness is still there in this earth. And Sri Aurobindo himself said that I will not leave this earth consciousness till the work which I came to do is completed, which till the manifestation, divine manifestation happens at the very, very physical level, at the level of the atoms. What a great assurance from Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So this is the work for which they have come, and every time the mother is in a contemplative mood and she is feeling ecstatic and delight, she is, you can say, she's jerked out of that, and she is reminded again and again that there is work that needs to be done, and by contemplation alone this work cannot be done. Now I understand clearly that union with thee is not an aim to be pursued. So far, the union with thee is also we have to let go. So far as this present individuality is concerned. So she has come here as an avatar to transform mankind. It is an accomplished fact since a long time. She says, I am already united. My individual being, I am already united with it. It is a proven fact. It is already there. So what is the point in contemplating it? It is already understood. It's taken for granted. It is an accomplished fact since long time. And that is why thou seemest to tell me always. She has this constant habit of remembering and offering. And that is why the answer also comes so quickly. And that is why thou seemest to tell me always, do not delight in the ecstatic contemplation of this union. Accomplish the mission I have entrusted to thee upon earth. And the individual work to be carried on simultaneously with the collective work is to become aware and take possession of all the activities and parts of the being. The definitive establishment of consciousness in the highest point, making possible both the prescribed action and the constant communion with thee. The joys of perfect union cannot come until what has to be done is done. So, realizing the absolute consciousness, being in complete union with the divine, a state which is ecstatic. Nirvana is, Sri Aurobindo has said that Nirvana is not the aim of this integral yoga. It is transformation. And if Nirvana is the aim, then integral yoga is not the yoga for this. But he has also said, even the mother has said, that Nirvana, this state of perfect union, and there is a feeling of nothingness. There is nothing else now. There is nothing else. What more would anybody want after that, after attaining this state? But the mother doesn't stop there. Sri Aurobindo don't stop over there. Nirvana is a stage which needs to be attained. It is one of the stages in this integral yoga. And it is also important, because once you attain that stage and you come out of that, then the actual work which needs to be done in the field, it starts happening. Then the instrument is a perfect instrument. And it is not an instrument for its own self. It is an instrument for the others to get transformed. So, first, she says, the joys of perfect union cannot come until what has to be done is done. So, perfect oneness can be experienced and achieved only when the entire work is done, when the transformation, and when every being is ready now to receive the supramental, Sri Aurobindo has said. And supramental is not that it is one target and it will come down jhap se and then everything will get transformed. No, it is a process. It is a process of, again, and there will be stages even after that. So it is an endless, the yoga is endless. They say Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. So there are stages and stages and stages. And Nirvana is one of the stages. First, union must be preached to all. Of course, this union is needed. So one needs to contemplate, meditation. They are also very, very essential, but they are not all. First, union must be preached to all, afterwards work. But for those who have realized the union, every moment of their life must be an integral expression of thy will through them. Let me read out this prayer in continuation so that the experience that she's talking of and everything it follows in a streamline. I was interrupted yesterday just when I was trying to formulate the experience I had. And now everything seems changed. That precise knowledge, that clear-sightedness has given place to a great love for thee. O Lord, which has seized my whole being from the outer organism to the deepest consciousness, and all lies prostrate at thy feet in an ardent aspiration for a definitive identification with thee, an absorption in thee. I implored thee with all the energy I could summon, and once again, just when it seemed to me that my consciousness was going to disappear in thine, just when all my being was nothing but a pure crystal reflecting thy presence, someone came and interrupted my concentration. Such is indeed the symbol of the existence thou givest me as my share, in which outer usefulness, the work for all, holds a much greater place even than the supreme realization. All the circumstances of my life seem always to tell me on thy behalf. It is not through supreme concentration that thou wilt realize oneness. It is by spreading out in all. May thy will be done, O Lord. Now I understand clearly that union with thee is not an aim to be pursued, so far as this present individuality is concerned. It is an accomplished fact since a long time, and that is why thou seemest to tell me always, do not delight in the ecstatic contemplation of this union. Accomplish the mission I have entrusted to thee upon earth. And the individual work to be carried on simultaneously with the collective work is to become aware and take possession of all the activities and parts of the being, the definitive establishment of consciousness in the highest point, making possible both the prescribed action and the constant communion with thee. The joys of perfect union cannot come until what has to be done is done. First, union must be preached to all, afterwards work. But for those who have realized the union, every moment of their life must be an integral expression of thy will through them. Between the absolute consciousness and the physical, what is, when Sri Aurobindo says that the individual self and the universal self, they become one, what is it actually meaning is that where is the bridge for all this? It is the divine love which is pouring out, and the mother has realized it, and she talks about it often. It is because of the love that the divine has that it is pouring out the consciousness and wants each and every being to get transformed and be united with that consciousness which is supreme. And love is the bridge. And we as instruments, our only work is the divine work for the divine manifestation. The transformation of the consciousness is needed for the divine manifestation, so that the divine can come down into the gross physical, change it, transform it, and then everything, the heavenly world that we think of, we contemplate, it can be there on earth. Everything needs to, the transformation has to happen on the physical level, and there is immense work that is required for that. And for that, we are the instruments to serve the divine for the divine service. And love completes this union. Because there is love, this union is possible. What is love if it cannot get translated into acts of divine service. A very beautiful 3 lines from the Savitri, again book 1, canto 3. I feel that when I was reading these prayers over and over again, May 15, May 16, and even the previous few prayers, it seems as if the yoga which Sri Aurobindo has talked of in the Yoga of the Soul's release in Savitri, it is all contained in these prayers. It is almost as if the whole experience of both of them is being poured out in these prayers and meditations. And a few lines which are how being in the human consciousness, the mother is still very divine. She is the divine. She is not human. Even in the human form, she is the divine. And taking on the burden of this, transformation, pouring out, working for the instruments, for the other instruments, yet she does not let herself go astray. And, there is an identity, the sovereign identity which she maintains because she knows that the work needs to be done through her. So the lines here, it is of course Ashwapati's yoga. Ashwapati is father of Savitri, who actually is instrumental in bringing down Savitri, for the birth of Savitri. His inner self grew near to others' selves and bore a kinship's weight, a common tie, yet stood untouched, king of itself, alone. So being in the human form also, the divine, they feel this association, they feel this closeness with the other souls. But because they have this work, so they say king of itself alone. She alone is the power working. And if she doesn't take this stand, if she just, she of course takes on the burdens, the problems of everybody, she has that power. But she has that power being the divine in the human form. That is why she is there in the human form. And her own raised consciousness, she is leaving behind forever. For even, they are no longer in the physical bodies, Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Yet, a huge churning after they left the human body. They left the human body because for the work of the divine, again the divine manifestation. A huge churning is happening now in the world. And the supermind which Sri Aurobindo said, the internet. The whole knowledge is there now at our fingertips. There are people who are leaving their cushy jobs and all, they are plunging into working for others, So there is a whole churning which is happening. So the consciousness with which they worked, it is there, it is touching all, and that was their work. What is our work? To aspire and open so that the consciousness which they have left, it can also left on the physical plane. It can touch us, it can transform us, so that we can do their work, which they want us to do. And it is a certitude. It is a certitude that the divine manifestation is a certitude that it is going to take place. But it can get expedited, it can get very much speeded up with intense aspiration from the beings, and the quick and the speedy, almost like a catalyst, the catalyzed flow of the supreme consciousness pouring out into this physical. If anybody wants to enrich this or share something, please do.
These two prayers have a mantric quality. What is a mantra? Mantra is a rishi's experience translated into words. That's always a difficult thing to do, because the experience is that of the infinite and the words are finite. Now, in this case, in fact, the mantra which we find in these, rather the mantras that we find in these two prayers go beyond that, because there is simultaneously a variety of experiences that the mother is going through. And why is it that the one itself can give a variety of experiences is not difficult to understand, because the one is infinite, and if it can take such an infinite variety of forms in its creation, why is it that its experience for a rishi should be limited to one standard format? And That's why the mother has said somewhere in one of these prayers also that the experiences of the rishis can also have a very wide variety. Now, coming to these two particular prayers, in the first one, the experience is that of the vast infinite on one hand, and on the other hand, the individual creation within it on the other. And while sitting here, an analogy occurred to me. It's something like a drop in the ocean, realizing that it is actually a part of the ocean. It is not as individual as it seems. It is one with the ocean, realizing its unity with the ocean. And in that process, it may merge with the ocean and lose its identity. But then just before it loses its identity, it becomes conscious of a very large number of drops like itself around it. And that is the experience, embodied in the description that I am among my brother instruments. And then, this type of an experience can leave a person in an ecstatic mood. And the person can get so ecstatic about it that there are two things that can happen. One is that the person no longer now has this knowledge alone, but has also become a devotee. That's what happened to Arjuna once he got the experience of the Virata Rupa of Krishna. After that, he was no longer someone who just had the knowledge of the infinite. He also became a devotee, because once you realize the glory of the Lord, realize its infinite expanse, its variety, and the fact that it is running this entire universe, when you become conscious of all this, you also become a devotee. So, in the second prayer, we find that glimpse of the mother talking in those ecstatic terms like a devotee. The second thing that can happen as a result of this experience is that the person can go into a quietistic mood. I need not do anything, because now I'm a part of that vast expanse, and the end has been reached. The end being realizing the unity with the divine. But then Sri Aurobindo's and the Mother's Yoga is not about that. It is about action in the real world. That is what they came here for, and that is what they have tried to sort of teach humanity, that spirituality is not about running away from the world, an individual realization of one with the divine, being one with the divine, but translating that experience of oneness into love for the creation. Because oneness should breed intimacy and love, and that is through which one can translate it into something concrete that is done for one's fellow beings. So that is what comes out in this second prayer very clearly, that the mother further realizes that while this ecstatic feeling is very valid, this is not an aim to be pursued. Because that is how the drop in the ocean visualized, as if it had reached a goal when it realized its oneness with the ocean. But then that is not the aim, because the unity always existed anyway. So what we are realizing is something which was always there. It's not that it has happened as a result of this experience. It was in any case already there, and it is something, a discovery of something that is obvious, something which was always there. But then after that, what? After that, action as an instrument. And if we go back again to that analogy, the drop, once it has become aware that it is not just a drop but a part of the ocean, one with the ocean, and it has all these brother drops around it, then it also realizes that it is not there to always stay in that ecstatic mood as a part of the ocean. It has come here to move away from the source while still being conscious of the source and doing something. So that's when the drop evaporates, forms the clouds, and then different drops come back to do different types of jobs. Some end up in the river, and some end up in the fields, irrigating the fields. And ultimately, of course, all these drops would reach the ocean once more, but then that is not there, and it will go on in a cyclic fashion. So while it may be very enjoyable and blissful for the drop to be always in that ocean and just remain aware of its oneness with the ocean, it is not what it is always destined to do. It is meant to do something more. In fact, leave that place go up, come back to the earth again for doing all types of things that this drop can possibly do. And different drops, the brother drops, end up doing different types of things in the world. So that is essentially what these two prayers are about, and I just shared with you the type of thoughts that went on and the analogy that built up.
It is really very interesting, and I'm awestruck because I had this, this wave wala jo example sir ne diya hai, the analogy. I had written, but I think the mother wanted all of us to have the delight of hearing him speak, and I could not have explained this better. It's so much of a grace that, the example, I had written it down and it came out from him, and in such a splendid way. Thank you, sir.